I'd always known that my older sister Jenny had a mean streak. She was 29, divorced, and living with our parents because she was jobless after dropping out of college for a rich boyfriend who eventually dumped her. Growing up, Jenny and I never got along. She was the pretty and smart one, always full of herself. Our parents adored her and sided with her, leaving me to feel like I was never good enough. People would rave about her looks while I was just plain old me. It hurt, you know? She'd use that to mess with my head, saying nobody liked me. Those childhood jabs left me super insecure. Our parents never took my side and overlooked my feelings because she always met their expectations, so I kind of distanced myself from them as a kid and a teen. Jenny always had friends over at our house when our parents were at work. Her friends would mess with my room, and once they even ruined a school project of mine. I almost failed because of that. I wanted to tell Mum, but Jenny blackmailed me by threatening to share embarrassing pictures of me with my classmates. At 14, I was really scared. She never took responsibility for her actions, and telling our parents was pointless since they never paid attention anyway. She did a bunch of things that made me hate her guts. Mum never had my back, but Dad would sometimes call her out. Once, she used my phone to send weird pictures of me to my friends because I complained to Dad about her. Then she spilled coffee on my prom dress and played the victim by crying and saying it was an accident. I stopped confiding in him after that. I didn't understand why she hated me so much. Later, I realized she was a narcissist, and it had nothing to do with me. She was a major red flag in her relationships and cheated on every guy she dated. I hate to admit it, but she was a gold digger too. Her ex, who is still my friend, says it all. Jenny was pretty evil as a teen, and as an adult, nothing changed. Her behavior got worse. It was all my parents' fault because they never tried to discipline her. Anyway, things started getting better for me after school. I worked hard to get into my dream college, and after a few years of struggle, landed my dream job. There, I met the love of my life, Tom, at an office conference. He was smart, kind, and handsome. We connected instantly and started going out on dates within a few months. We traveled a lot, which strengthened our relationship. Tom was close to his family, so he introduced me to his brothers and parents just a few months into our relationship. But I took my time introducing him to my family. The main reason I delayed was because of Jenny and her evil intentions. I always had a feeling she would mess things up. She was the one who always got the best of everything as a child and teenager, and now that my life was going better than hers, I knew she wouldn't be able to handle it, especially the relationship part. However, I couldn't delay forever. Tom was getting suspicious of my reluctance to introduce him to my family, so after a year and a half of dating, I told Dad about him. Dad was happy I found someone worthy of me and invited us for dinner. I was excited, but also stressed, because I knew Jenny could go to any lengths to screw up my life. Though Tom knew about my family dynamics, I still discussed Jenny in detail with him. He was chill about it and said he'd handle things. A few days after my call to Dad, I got a call from Jenny. It was surprising because she had never called me before. She was asking about Tom and when we would be visiting home. She was more interested in knowing details about Tom. I'm guessing Mum told her I was dating someone serious. Now she was all cozy with me, and I knew why. I was worried about whether I should really take the risk of introducing Tom to Jenny because I knew her intentions weren't good. I was also considering an alternative, like inviting my parents over to my place to introduce Tom. My older sister, Jenny, met this guy named Brad who was super rich and got into a relationship with him, ditching her studies. I was prepping for my college entrance exams during my final year of high school, and she kept saying I would never get into my dream college. But I did. For the first time, I got validation from my parents. They were happy and proud of me, but Jenny was envious when all the attention was on me and not her. My parents organized a celebration party with close family and friends for my achievement. Jenny wanted to ruin my party and hog all the attention, so she announced her engagement to Brad right there. You could tell from Brad's expression that he had no clue about this, but she was successful in her mission of making that day about her. Everyone got excited to know about Brad because he was apparently rich, as per my sister. Jenny always showed off the expensive gifts Brad bought her and would say that I'd never land a rich husband because I was ugly and nobody would want to date someone like me. Constantly making me feel bad, I told her that I'm not a gold digger like her and can pay my own bills while she can have the rich husband she wants. She was the most selfish person I've ever met. A week later, Jenny and Brad got engaged, and I was already off to college and did not attend the engagement. During college, I never had any conversation with her. Going home for holidays felt good because Jenny was living with Brad. Even during holidays, she would go on vacations to exotic locations with Brad. After a year of dating, they got married at a lavish wedding. Of course, the majority of the expenses were covered by Brad, and Dad paid for the remaining as a courtesy because she didn't earn anything. Their marriage lasted for a brief period, and after 3 years, they got divorced. The reason I found out was that Jenny didn't want to have a baby, but Brad was eager to become a father. He told me he never forced Jenny, but hated how she never disclosed her preference before and kept avoiding the conversation for 3 years. He also mentioned her drinking and partying habits, flirting with guys in bars, and that she married him only for money and had no emotional connection. I wondered if he was stupid not to know her motives for so long. Brad showed me videos where Jenny would go out drinking with guys, and they would touch her inappropriately, and she wouldn't stop them. Good for him that he got rid of her. My parents sided with Jenny and blamed Brad for forcing her to have kids, never admitting Jenny's fault. After the divorce, Jenny moved in with my parents because she wasn't earning. She dropped out of college to marry Brad, and now, after 5 years, she had no degree and no work experience. She put up an act of being traumatized because of the divorce, but in reality, she was happy being free. Within a month of her divorce, she was back to clubbing and hookups. Her Instagram stories were enough to let me know what she was really up to. After 2 years in my career, I landed my dream job with great pay, and my parents were thrilled. I visited home after the job offer, and Dad was so proud of me, I couldn't be happier. We were having dinner when Jenny returned home looking partially drunk. Dad was upset at her sight and said Jenny should have pursued education like me and not messed up her life with Brad, showing how much I was earning, and that Jenny was still dependent on them for money. Mum asked Dad not to make such comments. Hearing this, Jenny lost it, slamming the door. That's when Dad realized how spoiled Jenny was. He told Mum to put some sense into Jenny, that she needed to take her life seriously and get back on her feet instead of leeching off them. I think she resented me for that, because later she came into my room and told me that I could never be like her, no matter how much money I made. She body-shamed me, pointing at my belly fat and chubby cheeks. I was just fed up with her. As a teen, I used to be heartbroken by these comments, but now I just don't care. I laughed at her and said I really didn't want to be like her, and she clearly needed to fix her attitude. Oh my God, she unleashed her wrath on hearing this and asked me to get out of the house. I was like, this is my parents' house, and she was no one to boss over me. The next day, when I was packing for my return, I noticed that 2 of my dresses were badly torn, clearly cut with scissors. I went downstairs and showed my parents Jenny's childish act. Dad called for Jenny in anger, but Mum tried to cover for her, saying Jenny was in shock and didn't know what she was doing. Dad warned Mum to stay out of it. Dad stormed off to talk to Jenny. Jenny's actions had always been intolerable, but her latest stunt took it to a whole new level. I had always known she had a mean streak, but trying to seduce my fiancé GC was beyond anything I could have imagined. After much deliberation and discussion with Tom, I decided to visit my parents with him. There was no point in hiding him from Jenny, because no matter how hard I tried, she would eventually find a way to reach him. My friends advised me to test his loyalty now rather than risk losing him later. Jenny would only succeed if Tom gave in. With a heavy heart, I showed up with Tom at my parents' house. Jenny was immediately all over him. While he was greeting my parents, Jenny threw herself at him for a hug. She had changed her looks, dyeing her blonde hair black and getting all dressed up as if Tom was there for a date with her. She was forcing her way into the conversation, and it was clear everyone was ignoring her. At the dinner table, she rushed to sit beside Tom. When I asked her to move, she gave me an annoyed look, but eventually moved. She kept asking Tom about his interests, pretending to share the same likes. She kept saying how compatible they were and winked at me, trying to cover up her intentions. Tom was visibly uncomfortable, ignoring her and talking to my parents. After dinner, I went to take a shower, leaving Tom alone. Jenny walked in, asking Tom to call her number because she couldn't find her phone. It was all a ploy to get his number. Tom told me later that Jenny tried to gain his sympathy by narrating her sob story about her divorce. She claimed it took years for her to recover. My mum joined her in blaming Brad. Tom asked me if I wanted to go for a walk and give him a tour of the neighborhood. Before I could answer, Jenny stood up, saying she would join us. Tom said he wanted some alone time with me, and Jenny, embarrassed, went to her room. A few days after the visit, I was still wary of Jenny's tactics. I trusted Tom, but her relentless behavior worried me. Just last month, Tom proposed to me on a trip, and I couldn't have been happier. However, after our visit to my parents, Jenny kept trying to manipulate Tom. She texted him, asking how he was doing, and bombarded his inbox with cute cat videos, even though she never liked cats. After learning Tom was a cat lover, she got a cat just to send videos to him. Tom showed me her desperate messages initially, but after a while he stopped mentioning them. I thought she had given up and moved on. One day, while scrolling through social media, I saw Jenny had added Tom on her accounts, liking and commenting on his posts with silly heart icons. She even commented on his old pictures and videos from years ago. I didn't get a good feeling and checked his phone. Jenny's texts were unread but persistent. There were missed calls, including one at 3 a.m. Feeling anxious, I confronted Tom. He got nervous but stayed calm, explaining that Jenny called him upset one night. He thought something was wrong and answered. She talked about her trauma related to Brad. Tom told her to talk to her parents and that it wasn't appropriate to call him so late. He also told Jenny that she should have told me first. This really got to me. I told him hiding this information was not okay and that I might stop trusting him. He assured me he would never fall for her tricks and that I had nothing to worry about. However, I had read hundreds of posts where the husband falls for this trick despite trying hard to avoid it, and I didn't want to be another fool. I told him that whenever Jenny called him next, he needed to hand over the phone to me. I wanted to catch her red-handed. One night, her call came through, and he woke me up. I answered, and she was silent when she heard my voice. Then she said it was a mistake and hung up. I called her the next day many times to warn her, but she never responded. I texted from Tom's phone saying it was me, and that she should not call or text Tom unnecessarily at odd hours, and that if there was anything urgent, she should call me, not him. She stopped texting him after that. I was finally relaxed, thinking she was out of our lives. After Tom proposed, I sent a picture of the ring to my dad. Jenny must have seen it because she started her stalking game again. She texted Tom and sent stupid videos. As soon as Tom told me, I called her and yelled at her to stop pulling her tactics and get a life. She was silent for most of the time while I unleashed my suppressed anger. Little did I realize she wouldn't give up. As soon as I hung up, I got a call from my mum, super angry, yelling at me for insulting my sister. Jenny told Mum I was accusing her of stealing my fiancé's GC. Mum was like, "Your cruelty has given panic attacks to my daughter. Can't you be a little considerate towards your sister who has been struggling with depression over the years?" That was funny because Jenny was never depressed about her divorce. I hung up and told Dad that if they continued to turn a blind eye toward Jenny, I would cut them off from my life. I couldn't continue to be a puppet in her game. I was done ignoring her. I never thought she would stoop so low. She had always made my life hell, but I never thought she'd try to seduce my fiancé GC before my wedding. All that bullying, body shaming, and making fun of me was one thing. But trying to seduce Tom and break my wedding was a hard pill to swallow. We were planning our wedding bit by bit. I wasn't talking to Mum after the last confrontation, but she called me and apologized for shouting at me. She said she got scared seeing Jenny getting panic attacks and lost control. One of my cousins told me how Jenny had been sobbing about my happy life. She was telling everyone how I was accusing her of stealing my fiancé GC and how undeserving I was of everything I got VDJ the job, and mainly Tom. According to Jenny, since she was the gorgeous one, she should get the best of everything, not me. I told Mum about this, and she went silent. She was like, Okay, forget everything and focus on your wedding and your happy life ahead. Everything happened as planned. Jenny was keeping a low profile, at least she didn't pop up in our lives. On the day of our wedding, we were at the venue, busy getting ready for the big moment. I got a call from Tom's best friend, asking me to come to Tom's room with my parents. I playfully teased him that Tom couldn't see the bride before the wedding. He said it was serious and needed to be addressed before the wedding. My heart pounded, and I rushed to his room with my parents. Tom was lying shirtless, slipping in and out of consciousness. His groomsman narrated Jenny's cunning tactics. Tom was getting ready when Jenny arrived with a drink. He refused, but Jenny forced him to take a sip. Tom realized the drink was spiked. He excused himself and went to the washroom. He called his friend, explained everything, and asked him to come over. By the time his friend rushed into the room, Tom had partially passed out and was out of the washroom. His friend, who was sharing the room with Tom, had access to the room. He quickly turned on his camera while sneaking inside. He heard Tom shouting at Jenny to leave him alone while Jenny was sitting on him, undressing herself and rubbing herself over him. This disgusting act was captured on camera. When she saw Tom's friend, she pretended they were making out and covered herself up. Jenny didn't realize she had already been recorded. She smirked at Tom's friend and asked him not to tell anyone about what happened. When we arrived, Tom was still lying there, partially unconscious. The drink was so strong that even a few sips left him with severe dizziness and a headache. The drink was still there with some solid particles settled at the bottom. It was a super embarrassing moment for my parents, and they couldn't believe Jenny would do something so awful. Mum called her, asking her to come to Tom's room. She came with smudged lipstick on her face and said, "I know you guys are mad at me, but it was mutual. Tom loves me and has been making advances on me ever since he met me. Today, he convinced me for a one-time hookup before the wedding." Mum slapped her hard, telling her we knew the nonsense she was trying to pull and that her behavior had been recorded on camera. She was shocked to know this. My parents kicked her out of the venue before she could create any further scene. Security was instructed not to let her enter the premises. She deliberately wanted everyone to think she was making out with Tom so that I would cancel the wedding. My dad called a doctor who confirmed that Tom had been served a spiked drink that messed up his head. Tom's parents and siblings were so agitated that they wanted to hunt Jenny down. My parents had to apologize to them to calm them down. The wedding was delayed until Tom recovered after several rounds of vomiting. After a while, my dad walked me down the aisle wreath. I was very happy about it. And Jenny, after that incident, was out of our lives forever.